The Reptimax Real Feel Rubigia figure is here.
Older than the trees, older than the mountains, and even older than the dinosaurs. This saber-toothed apex predator is straight out of the Permian and ready to pounce into your collection. Available in a standard basic and deluxe super articulation. Order now through our website or send an email to the Karoo Origin Center at mrubidgea@gmail.com.
Get yours now before they go extinct.
Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited to finally show you my latest figure. But before we take a look at this new species, I just wanted to give a huge thank you to everyone who has been ordering my figures and giving me so much support. I have truly been blown away by all the incredible kindness you have shown me. I never expected that so many people would order my Rubigia figures. Thank you so much for being so patient with me as I completed each order. I honestly wasn't prepared to receive so many orders all at once, so it took me a bit longer to get everything done. So many incredible and wonderful opportunities have come from making this species. I've traveled all across the country and got to meet so many great like-minded people. Everything seems to be happening all at once and I've been dancing on the ceiling every day. I can't wait to tell you all about it and how this figure came to be. However, before we go any further, let's start at the beginning. When I posted the original concept art for the Rubigia figure on my Instagram last year, I got such a huge surprise when I suddenly got a phone call from Marina Rubidgea herself. Someone who belonged to the very family Rubigia atrox was named after. Marina said she saw that I was planning to make a Rubigia figure and asked me if I would consider making some figures for her brand new museum, which was opening soon. She then invited me to come to the Karoo and have a private tour of the museum before it opens to the public. I could not believe it. This was literally a dream come true. The first thing I did was share the great news with my best friends, Marco and Sora, then I started planning the trip. As luck would have it, I had already planned a road trip with my dad to Cape Town, and we would be passing directly through the Karoo anyway. It was simply meant to be. The Karoo is a large, arid semi-desert region situated in central South Africa. It is a truly magical place, home to many unique species, breathtaking views, and beautiful old towns. Many incredible fossils have also been found in this region, which date all the way back to the Permian period and beyond. On our way to the museum, we spent the night in the remarkable old village of New Bethesda. Founded in the year 1875, this little town feels like it's straight out of an old western cowboy movie. New Bethesda is also home to one of the most important and extraordinary fossil sites ever discovered. Countless Permian-aged plants and animals have been found here. There are literally fossils everywhere. I just went for a short walk around town and found some fossilized horsetail plants, small fossil bones still embedded in rock, and what Bruce and Marina confirmed to be the possible skull of a gorgonopsid. This is truly a special little town, and if you're ever in the area, I highly recommend going on the guided fossil tour of the area, where you can still see many Permian animals still embedded in the rock of the town's river. The next day, we finally reached the new Karoo Origin Center Museum in the town of Graaf Reinet, situated right next to the Grand Valley of Desolation. I met with Marina and her husband, Professor Bruce Rubidgea, as they showed me their incredible new museum. The center is truly breathtaking and filled to the brim with all the incredible fossils which were originally found on Bruce's grandfather's land. There's so much to see, including several beautiful life-sized models of some of the main species found at the site, stunning fossil displays, fascinating information, and a theatre room which plays an animated loop of what life in the Permian may have looked like. This is truly a world-class museum, and you've got to check it out if you're ever in South Africa. After the tour, Marina and Bruce took me into their office and discussed the merchandise they wanted for their museum. They asked me to make figures of their main feature species on display, including the heavily armored Pariasaurus, the swift and agile Procynosuchus, the small burrowing Dictodon, the bizarre herbivorous Elucephalodon, and the terrifying saber-toothed apex predator Rubidgea. Bruce and Marina asked me to mimic the colors and appearance of the models they had for each species in the museum to keep with the theme. I took several pictures of each model for reference, then I was all set to go. I couldn't wait to get home and get started. After a quick visit to Cape Town and the EasyCo Museum, which also has some incredible displays focusing on our uniquely African dinosaurs, I caught a flight back home to get started on this exciting new project. I actually already made and cast an Inostranceva figure before I was contacted by Marina. In fact, I brought the figure with me to the Karoo to film it in the beautiful landscape. I also wanted to show it to Marina and Bruce to give them an idea of my work and feel its rubber real feel skin. However, after going to the museum, speaking to Bruce and looking through his reference on an actual Inostranceva skull, I realized that my figure was really off. Looking back at it now, its head shape really doesn't look right, and the tail is a bit stubby. So I decided to alter the sculpt for this figure, and in the process also use some of the parts to make a Rubidgea. Since both Inostranceva and Rubidgea are around the same size, I thought it could be worth doing something similar to what Creative Beast Studios has done with some of their related species. If you have bought figures from their Beasts of the Mesozoic line before, you probably have noticed that they often use the same main body sculpt to cover several related species, often just swapping out the heads and sometimes the necks, but keeping the same main body, legs, and tail. It worked quite well since many of these related species do have very similar shaped bodies, such as these two tyrannosaurs, Tarbosaurus and Gorgosaurus. So I thought it would be great to try something similar. Then we would get two species out of the same main body parts. I also really wanted to try and give my new figures more articulation than before, similar to the incredible posability of the figures from Creative Beast Studios. The original Inostranceva could move only at the jaw and limbs, so I made the difficult decision to cut off my Inostranceva's neck and tail, which was really nerve-wracking because I wasn't sure if this new articulation idea was going to work. Then I also cut the limbs at the elbow, wrist, ankle, and knee so all the limbs would be fully movable. It was really scary trying all of this new stuff out, but I was really happy with the end result. Once the new and improved figure was done and cast, I nervously tried out the new articulated joints. To my delight, everything worked fairly well. The limbs move really nicely and so does the jaw. However, the neck and tail are a bit more tricky. The neck is great at rotating at the base, but the side movement is unfortunately quite limited. The tail also doesn't move as much as I would have liked. I still have a lot to learn, but for my first attempt at this sort of articulation, I think it still worked out fairly well. Before we have a look and properly review this figure, I want to tell you more about Rubidgea as a species and what this creature actually was. Rubidgea was a large and robust predatory theraspid which once lived throughout southern and eastern Africa during the upper stage of the Permian period, living approximately 257 to 254 million years ago, growing to a size similar to a modern-day lion or tiger at its largest. It belonged to a group known as the Gorgonopsids, named after the three Gorgon sisters from Greek mythology, Uriel, Medusa, and Sino, who could turn you to stone with their terrible gaze. Due to the general terrifying appearance of their skulls with giant saber teeth, the Gorgonopsids were the dominant land-based predators of the Permian, with saber teeth remarkably similar to that of the much more recent saber-toothed cats, such as the famous Smilodon of the Americas. Although they may look more reptilian, and some people confuse them for dinosaurs at first glance, Gorgonopsids are much older and are in fact stem mammals, meaning they, along with all other theraspids, are much more closely related to us than they are to reptiles. While I visited the museum, I had the pleasure of interviewing Professor Bruce Rubidge himself for some further information on Rubidgea and the environment in which it lived.
I'm Professor Bruce Rubidge. I'm the director of the Karoo Origin Center in Graaff-Reinet, and my research speciality is to work on fossils from the Karoo, particularly mammal-like reptiles, or therapsids as they are more scientifically known. 255 million years ago, most of the animals living here were plant-eating animals called dicynodonts, but the dominant carnivores of that time were animals called Gorgonopsians. They had large canine teeth, as you can see in the specimen over here. This reconstruction has got very large canine teeth, and there is in this fossil also large canine tooth, and actually this one's in the process of replacing a canine tooth. So those were used for, and together with the large incisor teeth, for really ripping out flesh from carcasses that they had killed. They might have killed them, or otherwise maybe they scavenged them. We don't know that. We do know that they were flesh eaters, that they were eating animal material. So we know that these things preyed on dicynodonts because we found the teeth marks in the bones, the leg bones of dicynodonts, of large dicynodont animals. And you might say to me, how do I know they're Gorgonopsian teeth? Well, that is because Gorgonopsian canine teeth have fine serrations on the backside. If you look at that specimen, you will see there are fine serrations on the back of the canine teeth. And we found broken off tips of those canine teeth preserved in the puncture marks, in the skeletons and skeletal bones of large dicynodonts. They were able to rip flesh from their prey and then gulp down huge pieces of flesh which they would then swallow whole. So at that stage, between 252 and 255 million years ago, this was the apex predator living at that point. They then became extinct 252 million years ago, and then all Gorgonopsians were wiped out. So the equivalent of this animal probably in ecosystems today in a South African context would be a lion, but probably this animal would be a little bit larger than a really big tiger. In South Africa at that time, in the Permian period, there were large rivers flowing through from a huge mountain range south of here, probably 100 kilometers south of here. Rivers flowed northwards from there, and on the banks of these rivers is where these animals lived. It was probably quite an arid environment, but every now and again there would have been flash floods and then big amounts of water coming down and depositing silts on the banks of these rivers and covering animals that were living on the banks of the rivers at that stage. At the time that these animals lived, all the continents of the world were linked together in a big single continent called Pangea. And so we find Gorgonopsians distributed across the world. They're found in Russia, they're found in China, and then in various African countries and in South Africa. And so they help provide evidence that once upon a time there was a single continent called Pangea. What is interesting, in recent years, we've always heard that Inostroncevia is the largest Gorgonopsian known. And that is because there's a complete skeleton of Inostroncevia preserved in Russia. We haven't got a complete skeleton of Rubigia, and so we don't know what size it was. But we think it was at least the size of Inostroncevia. The interesting thing about Inostroncevia is it's recently been found in South Africa as well, and it occurs higher in the stratigraphic sequence, higher in the rock record than Rubidgea, and so it appears to have lived earlier than Inostroncevia. Rubidgea seems to have lived earlier than Inostroncevia. Now, Inostroncevia came in later as an immigrant into southern Africa. So my grandfather, Sidney Rubidgea, was a farmer. He lived in a farm called Wellwood, just north of Graaff-Reinet, and he was a very busy farmer because Wellwood is a busy farm. But when he was 46, his daughter came home from school one day and said to him, "Daddy, what is a fossil?" And he said, "I really don't know, but I think it's something to do with bone embedded in rock." He said, "Let's go for a picnic and see if we can find one." So they went to a gravel outcrop on the farm, and they found this beautiful skull you see over here. The nose over there, the eye, and then these beautiful teeth over here. Obviously, when you find a fossil like this in the rock, it doesn't look like that. It's still covered with rock. And so Grandpa sat down with a hammer and chisel and started opening it up. And eventually this skull started appearing. And then he got in touch with Robert Broom, who was the doyen paleontologist of that time. That was 1934. And Broom came and looked at this and told Grandpa this animal lived about 250 million years ago, and it was a new species of animal. And he then called it Dinogorgon Rubigia after Grandpa.
Now let's take a look at the Rubigia figure itself in its official packaging. I decided to make two versions of the Rubigia figure so I could offer my customers a more affordable standard version and a more expensive deluxe option. First, let's take a look at the deluxe Rubigia. This version has the new super articulated limbs and fully enclosed packaging. On the top left of the packaging, you can see the Karoo Origins logo, and on the opposite side is my logo. Lower down we see the name of the species, Rubigia atrox, next to my artwork of this creature. The background artwork is my own drawn recreation of the background scene in the animated loop which plays in the museum's projection room. On the back of the packaging you can see my full artwork of the Rubigia with all the other species I'm planning to make for the Karoo Origins line, directly below with the words "Collect them all." I have started working on these additional species, although at this time I cannot say exactly when they will be released. Towards the right we have some information on Rubigia provided by Marina herself. Below the text we have my logo again, along with a Made in South Africa label and a handmade marker to show you that this figure is handmade by me. You will also notice that the packaging is held together by several fold-back clips. I decided to do this in order for you to easily remove the figure without destroying the packaging. Then you can also repackage the figure without hassle if you decide to display it this way in your collection. Having a look at the figure itself, the deluxe Rubigia has a rubber head, mid-body and tail, giving the figure a similar feel to my Mapusaurus and the classic Jurassic Park Kenner dinosaur toys, while the articulated limbs are cast in a hard plastic, along with the teeth. I tried to match the colors of the museum's life-size model as best as I could, although each Rubigia is painted individually by hand, so the colors will vary between each figure. You can also see that I've sculpted all the correct anatomical details. I always find it strange when other toy makers don't include the most important areas on their dinosaur and prehistoric animal figures. It just feels wrong to not have them there. You can open and close the mouth, turn the neck at the base only, and move the limbs at all the correct points. I must also mention that the neck does not move at this cut line. It can only rotate at the base of the neck. I originally planned for this version to have a much greater range of movement. However, once the figure was cast, I unfortunately realized that certain areas, especially the neck and tail, didn't have enough space to move as much as I hoped. I still have a lot to learn, and I'm still very new to making figures, but the Rubigia has definitely taught me many valuable lessons, which I can now put towards future articulated species. I have also done some new experiments with the paint after hearing back from my customers. Some people were experiencing the paint chipping off at the joints, mainly the shoulder and hip sockets. At first I thought we should try to actually cast the Rubigia's body parts in the main yellow color of the body, instead of casting the pieces in this black color and then painting over, just like what Mattel does for their Jurassic World figures, which are also cast in the main body color of their creatures. This would eliminate any paint rubbing off at the joints and would mean I would just need to paint the belly, back patterning, mouth and eyes. However, the result really didn't look good. I actually didn't even finish painting the figure completely, as it just looked nowhere near as good as before. All the little sculpted details were basically invisible when cast in this light color, and it just overall made the figure look really cheap. Luckily, we found a much better solution to this problem. I was able to find a black acrylic to polyurethane primer at a local store which works tremendously. The paint now adheres much more strongly to the figures, and we can thankfully keep the black base color, which really makes all those little details pop. You just need to make sure you give the applied primer enough time to dry in the African sun before adding the paint. Now let's have a look at the standard Rubigia figure, which has more basic articulation. Reusing the original limbs from the first Inostranceva figure I made, this version does not come with full packaging and instead has a little booklet tied to its neck. The booklet is basically a miniature condensed version of the deluxe packaging, sharing the same artworks, labels and information as the larger packaging. The figure itself is very similar to the deluxe version, with the main differences being that the whole figure, aside from the teeth, is made out of rubber. You can move the jaw, base of the neck and the limbs, but only at the shoulder and hip. I also recently made a brand new color variant of the Rubigia figure, which uses the coloration from my original concept. This Rubigia design is separate from the Karoo Origins line, with completely different packaging. However, it is also available in standard and deluxe, just like the previous color version. The full packaging is exactly the same size, however the artwork and layout is completely different. On the top left we just have my logo with the words Adult Collectible ages 15 and up directly next to it. On the right we have a label saying Scientifically Accurate Real Feel Skin in yellow and red. Towards the bottom we have the name of the species with an all-new artwork of the black Rubigia to the right. On the back we instead have a picture of the actual figure facing off against its Karoo Origins counterpart. Below we have an all-new separate lineup of Paleozoic creatures, which I plan to make in the near future. These include a Nostransiva, Prionosuchus, Antiosaurus, and the massive terrifying bugs Arthropleura, Jacaloptrix, and Hippotoporus. On the right we have the same information as on the previous version. We also have a necktie booklet for the new Rubidgea, which has the new artworks in a smaller format and carries the same information on the species inside. Now, for a size comparison, let's compare the Rubidgea with some other figures. I want to try and make all my figures in 1/18th scale, just like the Beasts of the Mesozoic figures and Mattel's Jurassic World mainline toys. I think I was able to get it roughly right, although compared to a 1/18th human, my Rubigia is a little bit larger than its life-size counterpart, which was about the size of a large tiger. Here is the Rubigia next to fellow Paleozoic animals, the Dimetrodon from Jurassic World Dominion's line, and the Savage Strike Scutosaurus, also from Mattel, the beautiful Styracosaurus from Beasts of the Mesozoic, the old Lost World Velociraptor from Kenner, and the Mapusaurus, which was the first figure I ever made. Here it is next to the soon-to-be-released Reptimax Hatzegoptrix figure and the updated Nostransiva, which shares some of the same body parts. I'm overall very happy with how the Rubigia figure turned out. It was really fun also making and putting together something smaller than the Mapusaurus. I'm really looking forward to creating more Paleozoic animals soon. All the incredible creatures which once lived before the Mesozoic definitely deserve more love and appreciation. More people really need to know just how very special they were. Please check me out on my social media to keep up to date for when I have new species available to purchase. If you would like to order your very own Rubigia, please place an order through my website www.reptimax.co.za. Once on the website, just scroll down to the figure you would like to order, then click on Inquire Now. Then just fill out this form and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. If you would like to help me further, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Over there you will be able to see more sneak peeks to future projects and get credited at the end of my videos, just like Joseph Shoeta and Samuel Red. Thank you so much for all your support. I also want to give a huge thank you to Marina and Bruce Rubidgea for giving me such an incredible opportunity. Having my figures for sale in an actual museum shop has truly been a dream come true for me, and I still find it hard to believe it has actually happened. Thank you for all your incredible kindness. I can't wait to make more figures to honor more wonderful life of the Permian. I would also like to give a big thank you to my molder and caster Erica for all that you do for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you all again very soon.
The all-new Reptimax Real Feel Rubigia is here.
Older than the trees, older than the mountains, and even older than the dinosaurs, the saber-toothed apex predator is straight out of the Permian and ready to pounce into your collection. Available in a standard basic and deluxe super articulation. Order now through our website www.reptimax.co.za and get your very own handmade Rubigia.
Order yours now before they go extinct.